Hello and Happy New Year. Today is January 1st, 2021. Wish everyone a Happy New Year and a healthy and safe New Year in 2021 for everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to my shop. I'm going to try something a little different today. I have a Maguire radio, two Maguire radios. You can see the one on the right. I painted a disgustingly ugly green color. I did this about a year ago. I was trying to make a Christmas radio and I painted the knobs red, and it just didn't look good. But I like the radio. It's a really nice player. So I bought another one sometime over the year off of eBay, the one on the left. It's actually a different model number, but it looks the same. I did a little research. These are from Maguire Industries, which was a company founded in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a state where I live, in about 1945. They didn't last very long. They made two radios in 1945, with each having a different ending in the model number, and my assumption is it's based on color or plastic type or wood. But so they made two in 1945. They made two more in 1946/47, and they made one in 1951. I don't know why there was a gap. And post 1951 they made about 2 or 3 different record players away from radio. They were an electronics company, so this is probably one of their sidelines. Interesting, the little factory in Greenwich, Connecticut still stands today. I haven't driven by it, but the building is still around. So first I wanted to show you how good the radio sounds. Let me just, I have it on low so the tubes don't need to warm up.
At this time when it can feel like we're more connected through video chats, through our smartphones, through
I have all these lights around so you hear a little background hum and noise.
Is part of your work helping people identify?
As you can see, it's a really nice sounding radio.
That isolation they're feeling, because I had a conversation with a friend
let me shut that off, rearrange things, and I will show you what my plans are
like you're
for this other radio.
But it not being satisfying in the same way.
Okay, we're back. Zoom out a little. So what we're looking at is the Maguire radio. This is a model 500 BW. I'm not sure what the BW stands for, but I would think black and white, but I don't think that's it. You can see the cost of it in the different zones back in 1945-46, $21.90 and $22.95. Which is more than I paid for it now. It also has the little tube layout. It's typical All-American 5. I don't think there's anything special about it. It's missing a back, which is not a problem because I have the other model had a back to it, so I think I'll recreate that on a Cricket, which is one of the newer things I wanted to show in this video in another installment as well. So it's a beautiful cabinet. I wanted to do something special with it, but the cabinet's so pretty, it's a shame to paint it, but I'm still deciding. It only has one knob, so what I'm going to try and do is recreate this knob by using plastic molding techniques based on videos I've seen on YouTube. So that'll be something new I'm trying as well. And one thing you can see, a little hard to see here, but there's cracks in here. They got cracked during shipping, and unfortunately the seller on eBay did a really good job of packing. He just packed it too tight, right? And so he probably, I don't think it was the shipping that broke it, I think it was the packing actually. The other one I have, there's no crack in it, but the paint was all worn away. And generally when I see the Maguire radios, this little plastic piece, the paint chips away. And we can look at the inside of it. What I did in the other one, I painted the background on it and it looks pretty good. Not a perfect job, but the problem is when you put the in the dark, when the light is on and it's backlit, you can see many of the flaws in it. So I may want to try and recreate this round dial. I want to see if I can do it in glass. Maybe I can find a bottle with that, same size and shape, but we'll see. Otherwise, I'll try and do a plastic one. All right. So let's start to take it apart. Take the knob. That looks in pretty good shape. Shouldn't be too difficult to mold if I try it. We can see that the wires were cut off, which is typical. And I'll just unscrew. And actually I'm going to turn it because I don't want everything dropping down as I do this. So we'll just turn on its back for now and finish that. Okay, before I look at the radio, let's look at the case. I mentioned the case looked really good, but as you get close you can see the cracks in them. The inside of the case looks decent, just dirty. So it needs to be cleaned out. Otherwise, the case is in excellent condition. Let me put this aside. And we'll take a look at the radio itself. So it looks like the speaker was repaired. It has some good movement, but I think this is all cracked, so I'm going to have to repair the entire speaker on the edge. It's missing the spider. The dust cap in the middle. I hope that this means that the speaker with the voice coil is still working, but we can test it out before we move ahead with it. All the tubes are here. I didn't try and... Okay, it turns on. Switch is a little stiff, so it would need to be cleaned. This is working smoothly, but I'll probably run the wire anyway. I'm sorry, the dial string, my favorite job. As I mentioned, it's an All-American 5, and I'll break out the schematic shortly. Chassis is in good shape, a couple of rust spots, but it's just dirty. Has the loop antenna. That seems to be in decent shape. And now let's look at the actual radio itself. Zoom in a little. Good. All right, so we have the electrolytic capacitor, which looks maybe a replacement. What's interesting is I see this is a two-part electrolytic capacitor. If I recall in the schematic, which I'll have to relook at, it was 3. but we'll see that in a little while. As far as wax capacitors, I see one. There's a very thin one. I'll have to check that out. Possibly 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is fairly typical around that number. So before actually starting the radio, I'm going to do some testing with this. So let me break out the schematic, set up my multimeter, and we'll check that out in a few minutes. Be right back. Okay, hi, I'm back. You can see on the multimeter I'm checking the output coil on the speaker, and we are getting some readings, which is good. But what I really want to find out is if the speaker actually works with volume. And here's a nice little trick you can do if you have a signal generator that has an output mode. I have it all set up and ready to go. So the hope here is that when I connect these two wires from my signal generator, that we'll hear some sort of tone. And hopefully the microphone's picking that up, which is a good thing, which means the speaker's probably fine. So at this point in time, I'll continue to proceed with checking the other aspects of the radio prior to making the determination if I should continue with this. I will be right back. Okay, welcome back. I'm all set up now. I have this schematic, which I was able to get off of the internet. So, as I mentioned, before I actually start to determine if a radio is worth repairing, I check a few things. We already checked that the speaker was working okay, which was fine. I'll check the loop antenna here. I will check the coils, the oscillator coil, which is over here. And I'll check the input and output IF transformers, because if they're not working, those are the more difficult things to replace among those. And you have to make a determination if it's worth repairing the radio at that point. So let's start by checking the coils. I'm going to move this over a little, or actually I'll zoom out a little to try and get everything into the same picture. All right. So the first thing I'm going to check out are the antenna coils. And based on the parts list and description, I should be getting on the antenna checking it out. 2, and the printing's so bad here, so let's try this. I think it's 2 and 12. So we'll try this. We're getting 0.3, which is fine. Then this one should be 12. What we are getting is 13. So that means there's no short in the antenna coil, and everything should work as expected. Next, I'll check the oscillator coil. According to the schematic, the oscillator coil should be reading about 5.52. So let's see what we get here. Let's try to get this set here. And make sure I'm doing the right one first. There we go. I was doing the wrong. So 5.52, what we're getting is 5.3, so almost perfect. Great. Now we're going to move on to the different input and output IFs. A couple of ways to do this. One is to can go to schematic to see where the different input and outputs come out. The other way is you can look directly at the radio to look for the wires themselves. I'm going to use the schematic because usually it's a lot easier. So the first thing I'll check for is the input transformer, which on the schematic, if I can focus, this one here. So based on the schematic, on the input, they should both read about 23.6 ohms on both the primary and secondary. So the first one I'll go to is pin 3 of the 12SA7, which is this tube. So 1, 2, 3. I can actually see coming out the red wire is going to be going to pin 4. Let me check the schematic. That's correct. And it's reading 24.1, and now it's down to 24. I mentioned it should be 23.8, so that's really good. That's perfect. We'll move on to the other side of that IF transformer, and that should be going to pin 4 of 12SK7, which is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can actually also see the wire coming out here. And then the other one, which goes to, I'm just tracing it. It doesn't go directly to a tube, it goes to a connection point. So I'm just trying to find out the right one. And that comes out to here. And again, it should be 23 point, I think it's an 8. The writing's not great, but it's 23.5. So again, that is so close. So we're good there. Now let's move on to the output IF transformer. I just noticed something shaking as I move this. See this? I mean, if a person was restoring it, this may be why it wasn't working, why it broke in the first place. I think this goes here, but I'll tell by the schematic later. Not a problem. Okay, let's move to the other side of the output transformer. That will be going to pin 8 and pin 6 of the 12SK7. So there's pin 8 and there's pin 6. I'm trying to get this set. These things aren't sticking very well. There we go. This is supposed to be 20 ohms, and if you look at that, it's exactly 20 ohms. Now let's go to the other side, which is going to be pin 4 of the 12SQ7, which is over here. Sorry if my head's getting in the way or anything. Pin 4, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. A little tight here. There we go. And then we have the negative, which goes to over here. Having some difficulty getting the connections made with these particular items, but you can see it's 20.1, or 20, so it's exactly right. So at this point, it looks like the radio is eligible for a fairly straightforward restoration. Of course, we don't know if there are going to be other problems with it. Next thing I want to do is I want to take out all the tubes and clean off the top. Oh, by the way, I mentioned I didn't record it, but one of the first steps I always do is cover the speaker with a piece of cardboard. In this case, it's a piece of pressed wood, because I always put my finger through it. It really never matters. I always do. So anyway, all right, so I will take the tubes out. I will test them individually. You've seen me do that enough time. You've seen on many other videos enough times you don't need to see that being done. My plan is to really do a good job and take my time. With the radio, the chassis is really good shape. Really not a lot of rust, but I'm going to do a good job of cleaning it. So I'll probably take a lot of the items off on it. And let's take this last one here. By the way, the one thing I did notice is that on the schematic, everything calls for a glass tube, but looking what we have here, it looks like we have 3 glass tubes and 2 metal tubes. I don't think it really makes a difference. I know it doesn't make a difference. I don't care that much about making it original, but if I look at what we have here, my glass tubes, one is GE, another one has no name on it, another one is a Philco. Those are the glass tubes, and as far as the metal tubes, 12SA7, 12SQ7, I have both are GEs. So we'll clean those up. I will take this apart. I don't think I need to record me cutting wires. So hopefully the next scene you see will be me cleaning the chassis. I will be back. Okay, welcome back. I took everything out. Fairly straightforward. I marked all the wires, where they belong to, verified they were accurate on the schematic. The one little difficult time I had is one of the screws that from the underneath here wouldn't turn, and looks like it was stripped already. So I had to soak it in some 3-in-1, and I was able to actually get it out then without a problem. I may have to replace the screw. Worst case, if I don't have a copy of one or an extra one, I can always go to the store, but we'll see. The time comes. Okay, so now the chassis. So the first thing I'm going to do before I even attempt to clean it is get all the dust off. And it's a filthy chassis. Actually, not that filthy compared to some I see, but a lot of dust. It's always amazing how much dust can gather in these radios, but then I guess when something is this old, I'd gather dust too if I sat around for this many years. Okay, I'm going to show you the product I use to clean this, and I've used it successfully on the last radio I restored, and I was shocked at how nice it came out. The metal was a little different. This one, I don't think it's going to be super shiny like the other one, but in any case, it'll come out nicer than it is. One thing I noticed, I think I said this was a 1945 or 46 radio. I notice here M47 along with probably a serial number. So that may be 1947, but I'm not fully positive on how many radios they made. As I said, it's a small company and those records really don't exist. Okay, so this is all set now. Let me put gloves on because of the chemical I'm going to use, and put some paper towels down and things like that, and I'll be back with you in just a moment. Okay, I'm back. What I've done is I've covered the tube sockets on top with masking tape using an X-Acto knife. I cut around it. On the little holes in the bottom, including these three here, I taped up from the bottom so nothing should leak through, in theory. So we'll give it a shot. So what I'm using now is the stuff called Super Clean. It's a degreaser. Works really well. I've read about it and I use it on other things, but I tried it on a radio for the first time, the last radio I did, as I mentioned. And we'll see what kind of job it does. So we'll give it a shot here. I'll try these things too. I'm just holding the top so I don't get any liquid down there. I guess I could have taped those up as well. Okay, that noise you just heard was some of my radio books falling off the shelf. What I'm going to do is then take some, I have a little piece of 2000 grit sandpaper. Excuse me. There are some fumes to this, and I probably should have opened a door or a window, but I had COVID back in March and I have no sense of smell or taste, which sometimes is a good thing, but also it doesn't alert me when there's something I probably shouldn't be smelling or inhaling. Anyway, so let's see how this does. Looks like it's doing pretty good so far. I see the rust spots that I do have on the radio are not necessarily coming out. There's so few, I'm not going to be that worried about it. Okay. Okay, I'm going to clean this off a little more. And use a little water to get some of the chemicals off too. But it looks like did a pretty decent job. I didn't think it was going to get super shiny like my other radio because the metal itself seems to be a little different. It wasn't I don't know the material, obviously it's steel, but okay. Alright, I'll finish cleaning up off camera and show the end results in a few minutes. Alright, we're back. I cleaned everything off, wiped it off. Decent. Not perfect, but decent. I'm happy with it for this radio. Next, I'm going to clean off the connections here. And we are going to put this through the electronic bath. Same thing that uses to clean jewelry. And this, I do this with all my radios. It does a very, very good job. So I will set that up and show you how we do that in a few minutes. Hello, I'm back. So this is my electrolyte cleaner. I fill it with warm soapy water. Actually, I realized I forgot to clean these off, but I'm going to replace that wire anyway. So I'll just cut this one off for now before I put it in, and I'll clean them off later. One thing you want to do is make sure that you keep this open to get in all the crevices. And you can see it. There's a water fill line, and I'm pretty much above it except for the piece over here. But what I will do is I will run this more than once. So I run it through the top cycle, which is 480 seconds, which is 8 minutes, and I run it through twice. So I will start it, and I will come back after the full 2 sets of cycles to show you what it looks like. Okay, we are back in the last 10 seconds of 2 8-minute cycles. And let's take a look at how it came out. So you can see the dirt is gone, the grease is gone, nice and shiny. The next step I do is I rinse this under cold water, make sure all the soap and stuff is out, and then I will actually take a hair dryer to dry it, because I don't want to give the opportunity for these different pieces that are, once they're wet, to rust up. So we make sure it's fully dry before we do anything else. And I'll show you the end result shortly. Okay, I am back. So I've cleaned this all up. I cleaned up the connections that were there. I think my automatic focus is not on. All right. So it looks good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some 3-in-1 and just put on the bearings in here, just a few drops there. Spin it around for a while, let it sit. I'm also going to do a little there and a little there, down through there. Let it sit, and I will put it back onto the chassis and reconnect the wires. and continue from there. Okay, I'm back. I reattached the tuner to the chassis, reattached the two connections down there from the bottom. I reattached the pilot light to pins 2 and 3 of the 35 Z5 over here. I've also put a new power cord on, making sure that the switch gets the hot and the other one goes to the neutral, which is the ridged one. This rate is a little different. Normally the ones I work on, they have a direct line from the switch to the line, but this one actually goes to an unused pin here, and there's a wire that you'll see that it runs all the way around to the switch itself, right over to here, and that's fine, so I left that one there. I started to replace some of the other tubes. Some of the other capacitors. I've done 2.05s, and what I like to do is, as I'm going through, I make sure I mark it on the parts list, and I also make sure I mark the corresponding ones on the schematic. This way I make sure I'm not messing anything up. What I'll be doing now is I'll just be replacing the rest of the capacitors, any electrolytic capacitors, and I'll show you the end result once that is completed. Okay, welcome back. We're about 45 minutes or so in to an hour, and you can see I've replaced all the remaining wax capacitors with these Illinois Capacitor Company, which are good quality American made capacitors. They also have the foil already marked, so I don't have to deal with those. If you look at these older capacitors, let's wait for it to come in. Come on. Okay, on this side you see a little line. That's the foil side, and apparently it can make a difference. Some people say it does, some people say it doesn't, but with the Illinois capacitors, they're already foil marked left to right using the label, so everything's fine here. I replaced the big electrolytic capacitors, 50-30, with a 33-47, because they really don't make 50s, or you can't find them easily enough anymore. I actually just have this, these are very light, I don't have to mount them, I just have them pressure mounted with double-sided tape to the chassis, and that's what I do, and it seems to hold fairly well. Next I'm going to check out all the resistors and find out if any of those need to be tested, and if I do, I'll replace those. And the next time you see this, I will also have tested all the tubes, and we'll give a tryout of the radio to see if it works. Thanks so much.